Hello and welcome back. It's been another very busy week, not on the railway but for me in general, so I haven't had time to get the B12 we looked at last week lubricated and ready for the railway, or the Class 47. So I just thought we'd play with a few trains today. I also pinched my son's telephone, which has got an extremely wide angle of view for some slightly different views of the railway today. So I thought what we're going to do is just run this Class 37 and the mixed rake of coaches around, and then we'll get them into the sidings over here. So that's the plan, just beyond the ferry vans there. And then we'll plan to get out the 264 tank there, and we'll get the mineral wagons out of the long sidings here as well. Just excuse the panning on the telephone there, it looks a bit exaggerated with this very wide lens. So we'll get those Corey mineral wagons, and we've got some NCB ones there. And I think there's another one whose name escapes me at the moment. So we'll get those out. But in order to do that, I think we're going to need to move the Lord of the Isles as well. So we've got a bit of fiddling around to do, but it should be good fun. If only I could stop standing on the squeaking floorboard. So I think to start with, we'll just open up the points ahead of the Class 37 so we can just run into the inside line for a moment. So that's 1B and 2B. So that'll bring the train through here to this set of points. So let's give that a bit of power. Now we're on half wave. So let's give it a go. So we're all the way on the inside line there. So I'm just going to switch the points whilst I remember, because I don't think I need them left as they are. And I can always change them back again. But what I am going to do is open up this one here, 3G and 1G, so we can drop back onto the outside line via the elevated section. So that's 1G in the distance behind the station and the Evening Star, right the way over there. And then that's 2G just sitting here. So we'll run around the inside line and up and over. So let's catch up with the 37 there, see if we can get a nice view of it. I think we'll probably need a tiny bit more power to encourage it to climb. So we'll keep this nice and wide. You can see it just beginning the climb now. So these are all old Trying Hornby Mark 1 coaches. So let's just bring that to a stop there. I think we're all on the elevated section there, and we'll do a standing start on those curves. Fair bit of friction. No silver seal wheels here at all. We've got all pinpoint axles and plastic wheels. So it's all fairly high friction. So that's all on the elevated section. So we'll just give it a go from moving off from a start there. So I'll just reach back for the controller. Let's go close in on the model. That's a lovely fun model, iconic looking locomotive. Definitely express speed there. Let's see how she does with the diamond. I should be slowing her down by now for what I want to do next. So I just want those coaches, the tail end of those coaches just under the bridge. That should do it. So I'm just going to open up number 8R here, and I think number 1Y as well, and that'll lead us into the long sidings. So excuse me while I fiddle with the switches. We'll just pan back around. So 8R, 1Y, change the direction. I'm just going to change my hand on the camera and the controller here, so I might be able to pan around better as she rolls backwards. Now there is that one piece of nickel track on the route here, where we may get some wheel slip. So it's just near that last catenary mast, or between the last two catenary masts before the bridge. There we go. You hear the wheel slip, and it's encouraged it to come to a stop there. So let's have a look what's going on. So that's the nickel piece there, but it came to a stop just as it came over that point. So let's retry that. I don't think the coaches are caught up on anything. They all look relatively free. So let's go for a little more power. It doesn't like that. So I'm just going to pull that out of there. I'm not quite sure why that's doing that. So let's have another go. There's that wheel slip. I really must change that piece of nickel track. It's just in the wrong place. Got no traction whatsoever there. So I have to be careful here with the back end of the coaches getting to the end of the sidings there. I think that's about it there. I'm just going to stop that and have a look, because I can't quite see over those ferry vans from where I am. Yeah, I think we're at the end of the line there, but I don't think she'll come to any harm just sitting there. So I think I'm just going to change 1W whilst I'm thinking about it. So let's just make this extra safe for a moment. We'll close 8R as well, and now we're going to get out the Lord of the Isles. So we're going to open 1R and 2R. So ideally, the Lord of the Isles with those little four-wheel coaches will come out. So we're halfway from we want to be in forward. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer in for the action. Do you know, I thought I had closed 1G and 3G, but maybe I haven't. So it seems we're on the elevated section. Let's just go over. Short memory, eh? I could have sworn I'd closed those once we'd finished with it, but there we have it. So let's give this a little more power. She's definitely going to run a bit quick on the way down, this model, I think. Yeah, I'm going to back that right off, because I think those little four-wheel coaches will just bounce off the points if we're too quick. So there we have it. Now I'm definitely going to close up the elevated section before I forget. So we'll just give that a go. And I think what we're going to do is just back up the Lord of the Isles now. So we'll bring her back down the station past the Evening Star. And then we'll open 1B, and then we want to be in platform number 6, I think it is. So that's number 5B. So we're going to bring the Lord of the Isles through here. Actually, I've left 4B in the wrong position too. That looks like a better path. And we'll put her in here onto platform 6. So I have put in some names on the ends of the canopies to try and help me remember, but I still get it wrong. So what we need is a little power. Change the direction, I think. Change the isolating switch, and we can get a little bit further up the platform perhaps. Noisy model on half wave this, so I think we'll just close that up there. So I think we'll open up platform, actually we won't, we'll just close 1B. And then we'll work on getting out the 264. So, excuse me while I'm thinking, so I need to open, let's have a look. So I've got to get this point here, so that's 6R, and then she should come rolling out. So I think everything else is set correctly. So 6R. And let's see if that happens. Let's hold the camera up a little bit. She seems a little bit hesitant. Perhaps she's sitting on yet another dirty piece of track. So I'll hold that camera over there and we'll give that a little more power, and it's still on the half wave. Yeah, that's right at the edge of this controller. It's like an all or nothing moment on the low down setting. So it does create, with this particular model, it does sort of leap into life and out of life. So let's close number 1. And then we're going to open 2B and 1B again. And we'll open 8R as well. I think there's one other point that I need to change. I'm just going to swing around and have a look. So I've already closed the W point up there, and it's 3W. So 1W is already set, 3W. Sounds good behind me, so let's change the direction of the locomotive. And we'll send her backwards. I've just switched camera phones, so we've got a slightly tighter view now with my usual phone. So we'll give that a little power and we'll get them out onto the main line. And we'll just calm that down, gentle stop about there, and we'll fiddle with the points again so we can keep her on the main line for a moment. So that's 1B, 2B, and it should be 8R, I think. And we should close the long sidings whilst I remember. So let's give that a little more power. Noisy motorbike. So that really was quite a lot more power, wasn't it? More than I was expecting. Let's see if we can back that down a little bit now. We'll try that again, see if we can get a slightly gentler move away. I think that's a bit more like it. I think we'll just move her onto the inside line now. And I thought we might just have a quick look at the Trying Hornby Book of Trains, which is a very small publication which came out in 1968, 69 I believe. I don't think it sold terribly well at the time, but we'll have a look in a second. Let's just move this lot onto the inside line. go, we're all the way in there. So let's just switch up the point work behind us. So I'm finding with practice that not to get distracted, that works quite well. Now I think what we'll do, we'll just get the HST out onto the main line, I think. So 5B needs to change. I know this wasn't in my original plan. And then we need to unisolate the platform. So that's these switches down here. Now, unless the motor's decided not to play, she really ought to run out of the platform. I've separated both inside and outside lines now electrically, so they're two independent circuits. I've got in the wrong direction. I want to run backwards, really. I can't remember which end the motor's on. So we'll just move her smoothly out of the platform. And I've got her on half wave, and I think she's probably more fun. Yeah, there we go. I don't think she's really a half wave model, this one. Whilst you can sustain some very, very low speeds with half wave, I think this is a little bit more interesting. So let's just change the direction, change the points. And I think once around with the HST, and then we'll have a look at the trying Hornby book of trains. As I said, this video just really is me playing with a few trains, which I've done periodically during the week. Haven't had a great deal of time. So here we've got the trying Hornby book of trains. Rather splendid image on the front there, isn't it? And get the environmentalists worried, wouldn't it? So I think this book came along in 68 and into 69. Not entirely sure it sold terribly well from what I read. There's what must have been a fairly ultra-modern looking locomotive at the time. I say electric. Great wooded area up above that tunnel mouth, isn't it? So we'll just pop that down. We're not going to look at it word for word. There's lots of historic photographs and so on in it. Let's have a look at this. There's the price there, that wonderful cut-off bit. Remember when books used to be sold, where you could give them as gifts and you'd cut off the price that was printed on it. I suppose they just use little stickers now. So it's got quite a lot of information about railways in general, and a number of historic photographs, which we won't dwell on overly. But we've got, what I'm really interested in is the product range that it represents in 68, 69, and it has all of the products right back to the plunger, or what's called a roller princess, which is the first variation, I think, of the princess for the Marks and Spencer's train set, I think. So isn't that a wonderful image? You can see roller pickups there rather than plunger. So I don't think the rollers were as successful as the slightly later plungers. And we've got a little clockwork tank locomotive there. That was metal bodied. So I've got one of these we should have a look at some point. It really is quite a lovely collection of images of models from right across the period, from back in the mid-early 50s, rolling through to this late 60s period. We've got the maroon Baltic tank there. So isn't that wonderful? And you've got the other variation in that very basic illustration, those insets. You've got the 262 tank, the earlier black variant, and the later green one. Just single lining. Early on it had a beautiful double lining and that large British Rail logo on the side. I always thought it was very pretty, the early black version of that. You can't go wrong with a Princess. You really can't. Lovely models. And there's the TC Pacific, and this one's got the Hiawatha nameplate proudly on the side of it. And the single-ended diesel in CN livery there, and the earlier version in the inset picture at the top. 55, the transcontinental diesel with the centre unit there for the extra power unit. Would have been great if they'd powered that as well. Very crude motors in those early ones. So I'm not sure whether some of these images existed in the catalogue and then were brought over, or whether they're all specifically made for this publication in 68, 69. That's a clockwork saddle tank there, look. Isn't that a wonderful thing? So there's the green variation there. So I do have a green clockwork saddle tank. I don't have a black one. And the earlier variant of the B12, remember we saw last week, I got the mid-70s variant and one of the switches. And I've got another variation, a CN, Canadian National version there. So a lovely stripy one. I like the stripes on the side of that. So I think that's this transcontinental. I think there were Australian variants made of that. So I don't think all of the models are in here. So there were many variations, I think, made for Australia, New Zealand of the double-ended diesel there, R159. Lovely model, really beautiful model. The diesel shunter we saw on the railway last week, running quite slowly. We had that's the blue variant there, just on that lovely little insert. Sorry, that's the black variant, isn't it? Black variant is represented there with Mark II style couplings. Look, in the light I'm looking, that looks very blue. I've just realised it's black. Diesel rail car. EMU, and there's that 3F tender loco in the two different liveries. Maroon Princess, double-ended electric. Now this was made in two-tone green as well as green and orange. So when we get back to a slightly coarser style of track, I'll get these out. We'll be able to see those running. Dock shunters, and there was a variant for a trans or a TC switcher, wasn't there? Without the buffers and hazard stripes on the buffer beams, as you might call them. There's the primary series range with a plastic pantograph, very optimistic pantograph. And I've got the L1 there, really beautiful looking model, the L1. Lots of variations of it. I think the variations came after this publication rather than before. Britannia. Are we still named Britannia at this point? Yeah, we are. I think the Oliver Cromwells and so on, when available with separate names or changeable names, came. It was later, wasn't it? 1970 and on. Excuse me, just adjusting the microphone there. We've got my favourite there, the EM2. And that beautiful lined green livery, and then in the lined blue. I think I've shown a version of that. I do have an unboxed variant of that. And then the Bud rail cars, there's quite a number of variations. And they were supplied to an American dealer, is it dealer or subsidiary supplier for the US market, AT&T or possibly Model Power. They were in the very late 60s, they were marketed in different road names. So they were quite an interesting history, these. So I suppose that was right in the middle of it when this was being published, trying to shift surf into the US market. Never very popular in the US market, I don't think. Much stronger in the Canadian and the Australian markets. We were just running that, weren't we? So the earlier variant, a little more matte than the shiny variant we've got on the railway today. There's the other variant of the yard switcher, they were calling it. I was lost for words before. So with the hazard stripes on the front. And I think I've shown one running with the optional snowplow accessory, little plastic clip-on snowplow. And there's the rather fine-looking Winston Churchill. Love that model. Really beautiful. I think my favourite is the one in BR, the earlier BR livery, like we're looking at here, rather than the southern liveries. I think this is my favourite. We had that running on the railway quite recently with the ferry wagons. I haven't seen this for a while, or the Caledonian single. There's the lovely Sydney Suburbans. Do we call them Sydney Suburbans, or New South Wales Government Railway Suburban Train for commuter services in Sydney, Australia? Quite often referred to as Red Rattlers. I think perhaps that might be the incorrect term for the group of real locomotives, but quite a nice name for a model. Well, that does look stunning, doesn't it? When you see the Pullman like that, and the rocket, and there's the Continental tank. I suppose this may have been printed just before the other variation with the red underframe and the extra dome. And plenty of versions of this and little clockworks. So there was a Battle Space one as well, and they're in bright orange. We just had that running just a little earlier on, didn't we? And its earlier version in a beautiful BR green. I think it's lovely in that livery. Shame there was never one with the extra pickup on the bogie, but I'm sure something could be done about it. And we've got the top tank here. I'm never sure whether they should have the badge on or not. My version doesn't have it. It doesn't look like it was ever there, but it's always difficult to know. And the lovely Bobo Electric. So I think let's just quickly glance at the back. I think that's a slightly later variant of it, is it? Similar looking locomotive. Early version by Trying Hornby, or Trying Railways, maybe just a crossover period, had the two pantographs and the white roofs. Quite a very pretty model. Apple green Flying Scotsman, the M7 tank. You can see the firebox glowing within, and the Hymex in the two different liveries. And the Albert Hall, we had that running just recently, didn't we? Lots of power available with that model. They really are strong and quick for those who like the models quick. I quite like the quick models. They are great fun to run. Great cutaway there, isn't it? And you note that centre drive wheel not making contact with the rails. That will make it definitely easier on and off the turntable. So you get the idea. There's lots of imagery in here, and it's a great history of the models. And there's those little short LMS coaches. I think just before I took down the Super 4 layout, I think I ran some of these with an early Black Princess. So it really is, it's quite a nice thing. I don't think these books are terribly expensive. It's a nice sort of reference. I think there's quite a few of them around. It's not a hard item to find. There's those Caledonian coaches. The earlier ones had white roofs, and the late ones in the 70s had... I'll get that the right way around. The early ones in the 60s had white roofs, and the later ones in the 70s had grey roofs. I think this book is printed before the grey roofs, but I think they've just illustrated it grey just to pick out from the white paper. And a centre car for a Pullman. It is quite such an extensive range, isn't it? When you look at it like this, and this represents many years of production back to the 50s. It was just such a busy time, constantly developing the range. let alone the technology which suddenly took off in the 70s. This is all very, very basic technology. Although the 70s now, the technology employed in the 70s and into the late 70s, I suppose now looks terribly dated, but just represents such a change over the early Roller Princess. There's different versions of the crane, the TC version. We had that sort of pipe unloading version and the log unloading version crashing around on the railway just quite recently, didn't we? So it is a little bit damaged. It's just sort of sewn and glued together. This is quite a crude publication. So the different couplings over the years. It's a lovely illustration, that. And then these grain wagons, they're quite interesting with the whiskey names on them, I think. Automatic train control, helicopter car unloading bridge. Mail coaches, there's quite a variety of those over the years. That's a lovely item. Such a simple thing again. And there was a battle space variant of that with a soldier with a rifle, a sniper is the word I'm looking for. And there's a wonderful scene. And we've got Hornby 00 coloured buildings in the pictures here. They're lovely as well, aren't they? The pylons. I think that model might still be in production today. I'm sure I've seen that just quite recently as part of the Hornby range, or maybe a 2000s box, 2000s issue. Track work. So we've got the various types here. We've got Standard, Series 3, Super 4. So as you can see, it's a lovely little reference. Might be just a little bit short on dating and the specific dates of certain changes in models, but it's certainly a good grounding in what's what with the range and a basic rundown of how the catenary works, the feed and return system from the overhead and the single rail. Stunning picture, that really is. A few bridges. And some of their buildings incorporated here. There's that signal. I've just got that sitting over there. I still haven't got it wired in, not quite sure where that's going to go. Sudden loss of momentum on that, coupled with returning back to work on the 12th of April. And the time has just vanished, becoming accustomed to having all that time available during the lockdown earlier this year. And they're lovely, aren't they? I was just commenting to somebody about this particular image, I think, although that may have been some weeks ago now. And Mr. Snooze has got one of these lovely freight depots on his railway, and they're quite nice. I think it came over from the motorway range. It's a building which started life there and then was adapted for the railway range. And there's the factory. So not their original factory. I think their original factories were in Merton and Richmond, or Richmond and Merton, and they acquired a few other businesses, but I think this was a purpose-built one in Margate. So look at the scale of that, and look at the size of these vehicles here, and then just look at the scale of the buildings. I'm not sure whether they're all the Rovex Empire or not at the back. And then it goes on to sort of Continental and American railways and some rather interesting pictures. Again, they're all sort of historic pictures, and just like the Hornby 00 book of trains which ran before it in earlier years, they cover development of railways, and such a nice thing to have. But importantly, I think it just covers the range so nicely, and there's a nice ad there for model railway constructor. 2 and 6 each month. And that's it. So thanks again for watching. It really is hugely appreciated. If you look back again next time, I'll try and get that B12 in action, and we'll have a look at her running on the railway with some rolling stock. Goodbye now.